Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lunch and Learn with us here at Action Coach in Birmingham on this Monday morning. Let's put the weekend to one side for a moment and let's focus on the week ahead. And it's great that you're with us today for our Lunch and Learn. Today, we're going to be looking all about book clubs. And it's really great to have one of my colleagues with me. We don't do this very often, but I've got one of my colleagues from Action Coach with me today, Ros Smith. Hi, Ros. How are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm really good, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks. Great start to the week. And it's glad that we've been able to come together. It's a bit of a chit chat this lunchtime, haven't we? But we're going to talk about book club and the benefit for all of us in reading books. And I think you, like me, Roz, have got a whole pile of books here. We're not going to read through them all this lunchtime. We're just going to talk a bit about the benefits and some of our highlights of the books we've read during lockdown. But Roz, before we do that, just tell me a bit about what you do at Action Coach.
Okay, Steve. So basically, my role within Action Coach is a client experience specialist, which sounds very glamour, but in reality, it's quite down to earth. So my main focus is administration support to the senior management team, which also includes maintaining the CRM database system. Quite a few challenges within those roles, as you can imagine already. I also manage the clients with their appointments, workshops, and help them on their journey with Action Coach. So that is actually a really fun part of my job because I get to speak to everybody, which is great, and I get to find out all sorts of exciting things and follow them on their journey. So that's great. I've also started to facilitate some breakout rooms within our Profit Club sessions, which are every other Wednesday and Thursday, and that has been really rewarding. Again, getting to meet the clients in a business situation rather than just on the phone. So that's been really good. And then in June, obviously the reason we're here today, I actually began to facilitate our book club that's held every other Wednesday evening. And we've got some great members on that. So that's also been extremely interesting, a lot of fun and very rewarding.
Brilliant, Roz. And you said that, perhaps one of the less glamorous roles in Action Coach. I was listening, my only reference to football today was I was listening to the Gareth Southgate news conference about an hour ago, and he was saying we win as a team and we lose as a team, and absolutely everybody in any team, in any business, is equally as important. So it's great to have you with us, and you're a vital part of our team here at Action Coach, Roz. And as you've just explained, you do so much behind the scenes. For our listeners, you may well be on LinkedIn today, you may well be on Facebook, or you're joining us on Zoom. If you have any questions, more importantly for Roz and for myself, if you have any recommendations of books, we would love to hear what books you would like to recommend and hear about. And perhaps if you're recommending a book, you'd love to come and join us at our online virtual book club. We'll tell you a bit more about that later on. But before we get stuck into the book club, if you're listening to us for the first time, maybe you've heard from us before, one of our previous Lunch and Learns, you're probably wondering a bit about who Action Coach are. We don't often tell you a bit about who we are ourselves. But as it's just Roz and I, we thought we'd just highlight a bit about Action Coach. We've been going for just over 30 years. My colleague Tom always used to say, if you Google business coaching, Action Coach will come up at the top of the screen on Google search. And that's because we are the world's #1 coaching firm. We have more than 1,000 offices in 80 countries worldwide. And I actually met Brad Sugars. I don't know if I told you this story. I met Brad Sugars just before, about 6 months before lockdown. And I said to him, Brad, how big do you see Action Coach going? And do you know what he said, Roz?
Oh, go on, tell me, Steve.
You know me, I'm always good for story, Roz. He said, I want to be in 109 countries. And I said, well, why 109, Roz? And he said, because McDonald's in 108. He's got this really clear, he's got this really clear vision to create world abundance through business re-education. He wants to create great business owners and business leaders. And it's great that we are still privately owned and funded, and Brad Sugars is still at the helm of Action Coach. So we've been so busy over the last 18 months working with small businesses, large businesses, every kind of industry in Birmingham, to help make sure the business owners don't just survive, but they thrive. So in a nutshell, I'm not going to say any more, but that's what we are here to do. And I just sort of take that opportunity this lunchtime to share with our listeners. But Roz, you came on board over a year ago now. You came on board with Action Coach during lockdown, didn't you?
Yes, I did, Steve. Very surreal situation. I think learning a completely new role and a new business when you're by yourself at home was certainly very different and very challenging.
Absolutely. I think for anybody, that those first few weeks in the organization is about building relationships. And, you say you're an integral part of the team now, Roz, but it's been hard, hasn't it? It's not always easy starting something new during lockdown. And I reference that because that's when we started book club as well, wasn't it? We started it during lockdown, really got it going as a virtual group. And I think it presented lots of opportunities, didn't it, Roz, in terms of people being able to, access, have those conversations, and perhaps being less time consuming than if they were meeting in person.
Well, that's right, Steve, because we meet for approximately an hour, and if you've got to drive somewhere for 45 minutes in traffic and 45 minutes home in traffic for an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes book club, I'm sure a lot of people would perhaps think twice. So we have been very fortunate in the fact that it is a lot easier from a logistical point of view to have a virtual meeting. And, we have people from all over, the Midlands. And in fact, we've even got one lady who's joining us from London. So, you with it being virtual, you haven't got to worry about the logistical nightmare of driving. So it certainly has been beneficial for us.
Yes, actually, before you joined, Roz, we had a gentleman further afield than that, Sam from over the pond. I think he was in Canada, I believe, at the time.
Yes.
So we have had people from further afield, and that's been the great thing about being virtual. Is people haven't got to worry about location. They can come on with a glass of wine or something else and just sort of enjoy the social aspect of reading a book. But Roz, for those who are unfamiliar with book clubs, or particularly an Action Coach book club, just tell us a bit more about how it differs and what Action Club book club is all about.
Okay, Steve. So, I mean, as you say, we started it during the lockdown, during the pandemic. So it has been a learning curve in some ways for some people, but for us, book club means that you get the book delivered direct to you every 2 weeks to take away and read at your own pace. But it's also designed to help you get yourself and your business growing further from what you learn from it. So it's a meeting with accountability on how to implement the learnings into your business and your life, which again, you can do from a lot of books. But last and certainly not least, it's a safe, social and fun environment to ensure you get the most from your learning and development. So everybody who's reading the books has differing opinions, but it's a safe environment that you can express your opinion. And sometimes, what you've got from the book or what you've learned perhaps would encourage somebody else to maybe take a better look at the book and see if it was something that they missed, or if it's something that they can adapt into their business or personal life.
And the thing I loved about it is, well, two things actually I took from it. Firstly, I'm not a big reader, and that may sound really bizarre being somebody here who's promoting book club, but you don't have to read the book, do you? You can come along having listened to the book on Audible. So we will provide, or Action Coach will provide an audio copy as well. Is that right? Or Kindle?
That's correct. That's correct, Steve. Some of the books are not available, I will stress that, but the majority of them that we select as a group are available from audio. So if you want, if you're out driving around as part of your job, you can have it playing on the radio as such and listen to it that way. And we have quite a few that do that, because obviously it's then they're not having to set aside a certain amount of time to read, because obviously a lot of times in business, when you're just starting up as a young entrepreneur, it's difficult to allocate the time initially to read.
Yeah, so absolutely, that opportunity to leverage your time. So although it's a book club, you can listen to the books, and we do supply them on Kindle as well. And the other thing I took away from it is the accountability, isn't it? It's about supporting and encouraging each other. We often sort of decide we're going to read a book and then don't necessarily find enough time in the week to do it. And having that is 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, isn't it? But having that accountability, as you've just said there, to hold each other to account, to make sure the book's read, or at least you've read as much as you want to, dare I say. There are books I'm sure we're going to talk about that both you and I haven't finished, Ross, for various reasons. Not quite our kind of book, or couldn't quite get into it. But on the whole, that accountability is a key part, isn't it?
It certainly is, Steve. And if nothing else, on several occasions now, we've had a couple of our members that have struggled at the beginning with the book and are really in a mindset that they can't finish it. They've had enough. They're done. It's not their type of book. So they come along to the meetings anyway, because we do encourage that, whether you've finished it or not. And because it's such a safe, social, fun area that we can have our chats in, it's on occasion, more often than not, by having the talks, by having other people's opinions, by learning a little bit more about the book, they've then gone away with the intention of completing it, because obviously they felt that well, actually, he said that and she said this, and oh, that sounds really interesting. I need to get to that point in the book. So although it is accountability, it's also sometimes encouragement that people have given each other, which has been absolutely amazing. And then the reviews on the book when they have finished it is totally different to what it was when they started.
Absolutely. And I think for many of our participants, and talk about myself at this point, it's the light bulb moment, is those BFOs, as we call them here at Action Coaches, blinding flashes the obvious. I know when I've been reading books with the book club, there's been things I've read in the book and I know them already, but hearing somebody else and how they've applied it in their business, or it's just that reminder of what I need to go and do this week in my own business. It's that blinding flash of the obvious of things that, that reminder, that sort of little nudge of things we need to get done or can be applying in our business.
That's very true, Steve. I mean, we obviously use this phrase quite a lot at Action Coach because, we're not teaching them or, explaining anything they don't already know. But sometimes it's just, as you say, hearing it from somebody else or seeing it written down again. You may very well have given somebody else the expertise of that knowledge to, for them in their business, but you're not actually implementing it in your own. So it's, it does become a blinding flash of the obvious. Hang on a minute, I knew this. Why aren't I doing it?
Mm-hmm. It's, as I call it, it's connecting those previously known bits of information together and connecting the circuit so that light bulb goes on. It's information we all know and have got stored up here, but we don't necessarily put into action in our everyday lives. But Roz, as I said at the beginning, you're the current host for Want of a Better Word. You facilitate book club on a fortnightly basis. If any of our listeners were to come along, I think it's this Wednesday is the next one. Is that right? This Wednesday at 6?
It certainly is. Yep, the 14th.
Yeah. So if somebody's come along this Wednesday at 6 for the first time, Roz, tell us a bit about what they can expect. So what would they be coming along to? How does it run? What do they need to do in advance? What would they expect during the meeting?
Well, as I said, Steve, if they're coming along as a guest to just see how we work, they'll get to see the other people with their accountability, with their reviews on the book and how to implement the changes in their life. But it also is an opportunity for them to learn. We always learn through fun, through play. We always learn from other people. We're always learning. So it's an opportunity to continue to do that. There is also the opportunity as well to network with other businesses, because obviously we are all business people that are there as part of the group. But more than importantly, again, as I say, it is a safe environment to make sure you get the most from your learning and development. And we have fun. Some people come with a bottle of wine, a glass of wine, a cup of tea, bottle of water, a nice beer. It's a social evening, and very often, people are comfortable. They're not sat behind an office desk anymore. It's out of hours. It's at 6 o'clock. So it's, particularly through the pandemic and lockdown, it's been an opportunity for people to meet, to socialize, to chat about things that they have a common interest in. And it's almost like being out, but you're still indoors. So you can sit with your slippers on, your feet up, in your comfy chair. And so therefore, for me, book club has everything that you need.
I think some of my most enjoyable sessions that I've been at, or sessions I've been at with both you and others, Roz, is when there's been a real divergence of views on the book, because that really leads to a really interesting conversation, doesn't it, where people have got quite different views on the same book. We've all read the same words on the page, but people have either taken different things from it or have a different view on how good the book is, how good the author is, the points that are being made, etc., etc.
That's quite correct, Steve. I mean, one of the again, the positive aspects about it is that everybody can express their own opinions, and I think I can speak for most avid readers. With a book, your interpretation is your own. Nobody else will have that same interpretation. With a film, you are being led in a direction. The director wants you to get this feeling from that film. He wants you to experience these emotions. With a book, it's all personal.
And just lastly, on what you can expect before we go on to the books themselves, does somebody need to sort of have read the full book, made copious notes, and have a presentation to come along with it? Or, what do they need to do in advance? How much preparation do they need to have done?
Oh, gracious, no, certainly no prep like that. I mean, obviously, if they are coming along as a member, then we do like them to, as we said before, try and read the book. If they're coming as a guest, then no, literally just come along with your cup of tea or your glass of wine and enjoy the evening with us, see how we work, get to meet the team, and you know, just sort of experience it, really.
Fantastic. So as you've just said, Ros, and for the benefit of our listeners, you know, you don't have to have written notes on the book. Yes, it's useful to have a few of your own jottings, but you don't need to have written a 2-page review of the book or anything like that. It's just coming along for an informal conversation and to learn from each other.
Exactly. And as I said, to be honest, we have actually got a slightly different structure in place now that I've implemented over the past few weeks. So we actually have a series of questions that we can all discuss, so that everybody has the same opportunity to talk, to answer, and to review the book from their own perspective. And they're very basic points, but they're a good conversational. So did you finish the book? You know, first and foremost, as we've already said, you know, some people don't for whatever reason. But, you know, and if not, why did they decide not to complete it? It could be the fact they just not have a time. They've had a family situation that took time away from them. They just didn't like the way it was written. They couldn't resonate with it. It could be all manner. Then what have you taken away from the book? So what learnings can you take? What can you put into your business life and your personal life that you found in that book? Because you'll find something, even if it is just a BFO, you know, you will get something from that book. And how will you implement it into your business and your life? You know, can you make changes? And how will you make those changes? How will it impact your business? You know, it's all a conversation starter. And lastly, would you recommend the book to others? Because obviously it's like anything in business or even in personal life. A recommendation from somebody is so much better than just being told to read something. You know, recommendations work in business.
Yes, I think it's fair to say a number of the books that have been read have come from recommendations from the group over the year that it's been running, hasn't it? But we started the book in lockdown, and before you came on board, Ros, and the very first book we read was a book called Who Moved My Cheese? Now I'm trying to rack my brain for the author, but it was all about adapting to change. About a number of mice, and the cheese kept moving, and it's about how the mice adapted to the change to sustain themselves and the family. And obviously that was a great book to start with. But Ros, the question I've been dying to ask you for the last 18 and a half minutes is, tell us, Ros, which was your favorite book? I know that we haven't even got images of all the books here. We've done a whole range of books, haven't we? And I will flick through the screens, but Ros, tell me your all-time favorite book that you've done with book club so far.
Oh, well, the trouble is, Steve, it's very difficult to pick just one because we have read some amazing books, but I would have to say that it is probably going to be Turn the Ship Around by L. David Marquette.
Right.
Had an amazing impact. In fact, I read it in very little time because it was just so good. It was, again, the kind of book that I like to read. So it was very much of a biographical account of what happened with this particular captain on board a nuclear submarine, and just the fact that he had the resilience and the sort of go-get attitude. He wanted to change lots of different things to turn this ship around because it was underachieving. It was the staff turnover was appalling. Everything about it was bad. And he went in and literally turned the ship around. And he did it in such a way that he would question authority, which we frown upon. But it was just the way that he tackled everything and actually succeeded. And I would highly recommend this one. It is a fantastic read.
And Ros, was there something about that being a true story that sort of appealed to you? Is that the kind of book that you've enjoyed reading, or was it just the content of the book about turning leaders into followers into leaders? What was it about the book in particular?
It was a bit of both, actually, Steve. It's quite funny because even if I don't watch many movies, but if I pick on a movie on the TV, my partner sort of gets quite cross, because whenever we look at it, or at the end of it, and it will say, of course, this was based on a true story. I don't do it intentionally. It's just whatever appeals to me. And it usually turns out to be a true story. So with this, it was a little bit of both. It was his account of what he did, but also the way it was written, and you know, the thing, as you say, you know, the learnings from it were huge. You know, every sort of time you turned around, there was like, oh well, actually, yeah, that's a good idea. You know, we could try that, and you could try that, and I did find it very inspirational.
Brilliant. And so I guess in fairness, I have to share my favorite book that we've done throughout book club. And I have to say, for me, it was a very simple one. Simon Sinek's Start With Why, you know, helping to rediscover purpose. You know, what, and we've done a number of workshops and webinars, lunch and learns with James Bolly and others about purpose. And this really is if you've not come across Simon Sinek, I would really recommend our listeners jump onto YouTube, onto Google, and just check out one of his books. You know, it talks about why some people in organizations are inventive, pioneering, and more successful than others. And you know, he uses the example of Apple and other organizations to really dig down as to why people are more successful, you know, and help you to connect with your why. What is your purpose in what you're doing? Not sort of how you do it, but why do you do it? And actually, that inspired me to go from that to, we also looked at the Infinite Game, didn't we? I can't remember if you were with us when we did that one, Roz. I know it was not quite as popular with some of my fellow book readers at the time, but a great book. You know, learning to work and run our business within a set of rules, and how those rules and how we adapt to those rules as they change. And I haven't got to it yet. I bought this the other weekend, Leaders Eat Last. Again, another Simon Sinek's book. So there's a bit of a theme there going for me, Roz, in terms of an author. But I have loved his work so far. Just on the other end of the scale, Roz, I talked about you know, sort of my favorite. What was your most challenging? I wouldn't say least favorite, because I think it's always a bit harsh on the author. But what was your most challenging book that we looked at?
Actually, Steve, I think it was the one you just picked up, the Simon Sinek one.
Was that one?
Yeah, I really struggled. I got so tired of hearing finite and infinite that I got to the point where I just couldn't read that word anymore. It's a bit like the pandemic with this unprecedented, you know, all you pick up on is that one word, you know, those two words. And for me, it was quite difficult. I know many years ago when I was training different staff within a company, and they always taught at the beginning to make sure that you didn't come up with a saying that would detract from what you're teaching. So, for example, if you've got somebody that every time they talk, at the end of each sentence, it's okay, you're doing this, okay, we're going to do it this way, okay, because then all people focus on is okay. It doesn't matter how good your training is in between, you've lost the audience. And unfortunately, I found that with that particular book, it wasn't my personal choice at all. I did struggle.
No, that's fair enough. And again, just to give my take on not on that book, but on the one I found the most challenging was on the screen there, Tim Harford's How to Make the World Add Up. Really didn't. And I think sometimes it's not necessarily the content of the book, it's how it's presented, isn't it? And how it's, as you've just been alluding to in some ways, how it's written. It just didn't quite, I couldn't quite get my head around it. And I think there are some books that we sometimes start, and then either the way the author's writing the book, or the, you know, sort of the way it's laid out, not in terms of writing, but the way the book is written, just doesn't quite click with everyone in the book club, does it?
No, and that actually sort of brings me to another one that I found hard to say whether it was my favourite or not. It certainly is very, very high on my list, and that was the Jawad Ahsan, the CEO of Axon.
Oh yes,
what they did tell me. Now, again, book lovers will understand what I mean when I say the book was a good size. It was not overly thick. It was a lovely cover. It sort of made you want to stop and think, because again, it's sort of like it got the light bulb on the front, so it kind of made you think. But the way it was written, the font, all these crazy things, but it makes the book readable. And the font was excellent. The way it was written was excellent. Jawad came across as a lovely human being, and he had written about a lot of his experiences getting to where he got, and a lot of people, young business people or young entrepreneurs in the early stages of their business, could really resonate with what he was saying and what he was doing. And he came across as a very fair leader that listened and took on board. So again, people could learn from that. But the good thing about this as well was that I actually contacted Jawad via LinkedIn, and we were very, very honoured and privileged to welcome him as a guest when we reviewed his book.
You've just put me to the post there, because I was just about to say, wasn't that one of the ones where we had the author? And I think there's been a number of sessions where the authors very graciously have come along and joined. I think that's another advantage of it being a virtual book club, isn't it? The authors are very happy to drop in for either for the whole session or for part of the session. Another one I've got right in front of me is Infinite Giving, that's on the screen there. And I know we had both, two of the three authors with us for that. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I think partly the reason I enjoyed that is it's based on BNI, the BNI International, and all about networking. And it's got some great tips on, both on networking, but just understanding how to build relationships. And that's something that's sort of very close to my heart in terms of doing business. It's all about relationship-based selling. But Ros, tell me, how often do authors come along, and how do you go about doing that? Is it just a case of, sort of out of the blue, or do you, tell me, how's it gone? How have you managed to get the authors along?
Well, Steve, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, really. As I said, with Jawad, I just messaged him on LinkedIn and said, look, we're reviewing your book. I don't suppose you'd be able to find time in your busy schedule to come and join us. And he was absolutely thrilled and honoured to come and join us. He didn't even, we weren't in a position to offer pre-listed questions for him, so it was all off the cuff, and he was amazing. In fact, I think that session went on for about an hour and a half. He was very, very interesting to speak to, and the group got a lot from him. So it's just basically been a bit cheeky, I suppose, really. We've just recently had the last book that we read, 100 Million Hair Ties and a Vodka Tonic by oh gosh, my brain is completely dumped now.
Don't worry,
I can't think.
We'll get it.
But Trellis Tavid is her last, Sophie, and it was just an amazing book that she wrote. She was 18 when she started. She was at uni, and again, I contacted her via LinkedIn and asked the same question. Again, she was absolutely thrilled to come and join us, and it was an extremely interesting session, talking with her about how she started, the struggles that she's had, and basically just picking up on different things in her book. So it really is just a case of putting the question out there and asking, would you like to join us? Because obviously for them it's quite good to get honest feedback.
Yeah, and I've been there for a number of sessions excuse me, where we've had the authors, and it has been really engaging, really interesting conversation with them, hasn't it? Understanding what their intentions were when they put pen to paper, what were the messages they were trying to get across. And there have been some fascinating conversations. That was obviously the one you read at the last session, the 100 Million Hair Ties. Obviously quite a new book. We've also read some quite sort of, dare I say, sort of long in the tooth books, and one of my favorites that we looked at a number of months ago was the 7 Habits by Stephen Covey. It's been, when was it published? It was a long time ago when it first came out. It's been around many years. My book was given to me in 2000, so it's at least 20 years old. But again, a book that's just full of useful information. And the reason I love this one is it's divided into 7 really clear smaller chapters. You haven't got to read the book from back to cover, dare I say. You can dip into the particular chapters that are relevant to you in your business at that particular time, and then going back to others later. So there has been a real variety of different kinds of books, styles of books, the dates they've been published, bestsellers, new releases, right back to sort of the old in the tooth books such as this. And I actually went on to read his sorry, he wrote Seven Habits, then went on to read Speed of Trust, which I thoroughly enjoyed as well. Again, partly I think because it's all about relationships. So another one that I have thoroughly enjoyed. But is it fair to say, Roz, there's been a leaning towards more biographical books over the year, or has it been a bit of a variety?
Well, Steve, it's funny you should say that, because at the moment, the group that we have do tend to relate a little bit more to the biographical ones. For example, we also read The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley. And for those who don't know, he's the gentleman that actually swam around the United Kingdom.
Yes.
Huge feat in itself.
Yes, he finished down here in Kent. So
That's correct.
vague memories of him finishing many years ago. Yes.
Yes, and it was, to be honest, I didn't know about the story beforehand, so it was, something new for me just to read the book. But it was like you were willing him to, you were almost swimming every stroke with him because of the different things he was going through. And what was really good about it, at the end of each chapter, he put a list of lessons of what he'd actually learned. So it was really interesting to get his perspective as he was writing it, and as he, obviously reflecting back on what he had accomplished. So that was again a very interesting book.
I suspect there's only so many how-to books you can read at one time before you then you get a bit fed up of somebody telling you how to do it. But listening and reading from other people's experience is a much more enjoyable experience.
Yes, I think so. I think you can tend to relate to them a bit more as well. There's nothing worse than somebody who, for example, has maybe just started their business and are having struggles. For example, like Sophie, when she was talking about her business, she was, as I said, she was at university when she started at Warwick, and she was having tremendous issues with dealing with China for importing and exporting. And she finally went out to China herself, only to discover that the warehouse where they thought they were producing all of these hair ties and hair bubbles was only actually a packing depot. The factory was clear across the other side of China somewhere, which she didn't know. Her liaison, her interpreter, was not feeding back the correct information, to the point where the factory actually burnt down at one stage, and she didn't find out until 3 weeks later. So there was a lot of things going on, sort of, with like China as an issue then, for example. And if she'd have read a lot of these self-help books that, had said, right, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that, it possibly would not have helped in her situation. I'm not saying it would or it wouldn't, but, and again, with like some of our members at the moment, they're actually going through the same issues that Sophie has already gone through. So by reading the book, they can use a lot of that, not advice even, but knowledge to help them move forward, and knowing that, you can come out the other side. Because I think, in the early stages, it is quite daunting.
What's going through my mind at the moment was, as I'm hearing you talk and just reflecting on the conversation we've had on this Lunch and Learn, is how many of the books have been not deliberately planned this way, but related to the situations that people have been facing in the real world over the last 12 months. There's been a number of books on resilience. There's 3 on the screen there: the Resilience Template, Turn the Ship Around, all about leadership and management, The Art of Resilience. We've talked about over the last 12 months, we've talked about, understanding your why and your purpose. We also talked about the 7 habits, which was all about setting, large chunk of that's about setting goals. And I don't know if you were with us, did you do Atomic Habits with us as well, Roz?
No, I think that was just as I started. In fact, I may even still have it on my Kindle, but
well, there we go. Absolutely recommend reading that. It's great because, we talk about setting goals and thinking big, which is really important. But James Clear in that book talks all about looking at the smaller things in life. If you're going to the gym, instead of doing 10 press-ups, can you do 12? Instead of making 5 phone calls, can you make 6 this week? Instead of setting yourself a target of closing 3 deals, can you close 4? What are the small things we can focus on that are tangible, that we can all relate to every single day? And he talks a lot in there about, revitalizing and looking at our discipline And just getting better by 1% every single day of every single week can make that huge difference. So, but what's striking me is how the books have all been relatable to the situation that we've been facing over the last 12, 18 months.
That's right, Steve. I think with any book, as I said, because it is a personal journey, you interpret it in your own way, which is very different from everybody else. I think whatever you read, you can use and adapt to something in your own life, particularly through this pandemic, because everybody has suffered in some way, but probably in a different way to everybody else. There's no two people the same.
Absolutely. And so the other book, I don't know, were you with us when we did Mindfulness Meditation by Andy Puddicombe?
No, sadly, that was before my time.
So we've read so many books, Ross. It's just reminding me of which ones we talked about. But that one was a really interesting session. We had an hour and a quarter together as a book club, and we actually ended it with a meditation session. Andy Puddicombe, for those who don't know, is a creator of Headspace, a great app that helps with meditation and mindfulness. He's written a book about that, and we just put it into practice. So it just reminds me of how much fun book club is. It's not just about sitting there, sort of people think of it as quite maybe a highbrow or intellectuals, sort of gathering. It's not that at all. It's really informal and really great fun, isn't it, Roz?
It certainly is, yes, and I can't stress enough, we all learn better through fun. Think back to your early days of learning; it was always through play and through fun. So, although we don't, actively play, we are still having fun in what we're doing, and as I say, it is a social event as well. We look forward to the catch up with friends, over the sort of every other Wednesday. And it is very informal, although I have put a little bit of structure in place just to give everybody the opportunity to speak and to share their views. But it's all about having fun and enjoying the evening.
And we've talked about a number of books, Roz. Before we come to an end, was there any other books that I've missed out that you really wanted to share with us on this Lunch and Learn that you've looked at in book club over the last few weeks or months?
Well, one that proved to be very controversial.
Yes.
Just to show that we don't read good biographies, we don't just read the ones that are self-help books. We've got one here that was From Innocence to Arrogance, and it was
Arrogance, by
yes. Ezekiel King. Now, again, fortunately, we were privileged to have Ezekiel join us to review his book. And again, it's, the back jacket says, From Innocence to Arrogance is the most authentic British crime novel on the market today. This book takes the reader on the journey in first person as Cyrus Johnson lives his day-to-day life. Every 15-year-old is somewhat the same. What makes Cyrus so different is his mentality and decision-making. Read this. It will open your eyes to a world you never knew existed right under your nose. The information to live this life is here, but after having it, would you still want to? Now, if that's not gripping enough to make you want to turn the pages and see what it's about, and it's very much a story of a young man who, for whatever reason, makes money selling drugs. Not everybody's cup of tea, not everybody agrees with it, but I, for one, was very weird reading the book. Although I knew it was illegal, although I knew it was wrong, because of the way his mind worked and his business acumen, you want him to succeed. Very, very strange that, you want him to succeed in doing something that is totally illegal. And, one of my questions to him was that in the book, it was very difficult to determine what was perhaps fact and what was fiction. But one part really sort of stuck in my mind, and it was that his parents and his aunt were very much involved in what he was doing, and not chastising because it was wrong, but almost encouraging him because he was bringing money into the family, lots of money. And when I sort of said to him, Ezekiel, help me understand why something so wrong, so dangerous and so illegal was almost given the backing by your family. And he explained to me that growing up from where his family are from in Jamaica, you don't have the luxury of, ample foods, ample money, a lifestyle like you have in England as such. It's very basic and very poor in many areas. And he was saying that his parents didn't frown upon the fact that it was illegal or wrong because he was providing for his family. So in that sense, they couldn't see that it was wrong. So it was very interesting to have his perspective, but it was very controversial. I have to say there was a complete divide down the group. And
I remember the session well, Roz, and I thoroughly enjoyed hearing Ezekiel's first-hand experience. And I think also that was a great example of where we could hear from him what he wanted, the messages and what he wanted to get across in his book versus what people had taken away. And I think it really did open some people's minds by having the author there, didn't it? But I think what I'm looking forward to most in that is part 2, because he stops before he gets to turning his life around. Obviously, he has turned his life around, and I personally would love to hear that second part about how he's moved his life forward. But I think what, in a tongue-in-cheek way, we were talking about in that particular session, it's such a memorable one, is some of the similarities in terms of delegation, systemization, that we all apply in a legal way in our business, but actually weren't that different to how he was operating his illegal drug gangs at those times. And it was just interesting. I think for me personally, and I'm sure for you, Roz, it gave us an insight into a world that we have no knowledge about day to day, and we wouldn't have done had we not picked up that book.
That's true. And I was only speaking to Ezekiel just recently, and book 2 is actually in the process. So that's always good to hear. But he is a classic, extremely good example of how he has turned his life around. He is now going into schools and talking to youngsters to discourage them taking the route he took. And is trying to make a better world for youngsters in the future. And I think that is pretty amazing to have actually done that.
Absolutely. So, well, we're coming almost to the end of the time that we've got, Roz. It's been great going through just a snippet of a few of the books that you and I have both looked at as part of our book club here at Action Coach. I'm always reminded when we talk about book club of Jim Rohn. He was a coach that inspired Brad Sugars to get to start Action Coach many years ago. And those 2 quotes, I think, just book club really resonates and sort of aligns itself to these, never wish your life were easy, but wish that you were better. And that's all about self-development, isn't it? It's about how can we take personal responsibility, accountability and ownership for developing ourselves every single day. And the other one is work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Again, it's all about self-development. And that's what I love about book club. It's an opportunity once a fortnight to come and to take time out to work on yourself, to develop yourself and look after yourself as an owner and leader or senior manager in your business, and think, what can I do differently? What can I do better?
Definitely. Jim Rohn's quotes are always so inspiring.
And Roz, I'll leave this last bit to you as the current host, facilitator, organizer of Action Coaches Book Club. Tell us a bit about what you're reading at the moment, when your next meeting, and how people can get involved.
Okay, Steve, thanks for that. So our next meeting, as we've said previously, is this coming Wednesday, the 14th of July at 6 o'clock. And we will be reviewing The Four by Scott Galloway. And that talks all about Amazon and Google, Facebook. It's quite an interesting book. On Wednesday, the 28th, because we do meet every other week, we're reviewing Where You Are, Not Who You Are by Ursula Burns. And again, another book. And all our books are actually chosen by our members, Steve. It's not something that I go through Amazon book list and think, all right, well, we'll have that. That's not how it works at all. It is discussed, it is agreed upon with our members. And talking of becoming a book club member, you can do it for only £7.50 a week. And that includes the book delivered to your door.
That's absolutely phenomenal, Roz, isn't it? £7.50 a week, including the book or the audio version to your door.
Yeah, exactly. So, you don't even have to go out and buy the book. It will be delivered to you in time for you to read it, to be able to come and review with us on the Wednesday evening session.
And because it's virtual, at this time of year, people are hopefully jet setting off somewhere, or even going on holiday in the UK, wherever you are on holiday, you can take the book with you, read it while you're away, and jump on a social call on a Wednesday evening once a fortnight and just catch up with your fellow friends or colleagues and discuss the book. It's not a big time commitment, is it? It's sort of an hour and a half, absolute tops, but usually an hour every other Wednesday.
That's correct, Steve. We try to keep it to the hour. As I said, on a couple of occasions where we've had the author join us, it has run over a little bit. But to be honest, you don't notice that it's run over because you're all so engrossed and having fun and enjoying what you're doing. So, an hour, and as you say, people can join from wherever they are. Once we get you booked on and registered, you'll have a Zoom link sent across to you, and you can just join us wherever.
Brilliant. Well, in the infamous words of Tiger Woods, and I'm sure many others would say this in the sporting world, no matter how tough you think you are, none of us can do this on our own. It's having that support, that accountability, that opportunity in a safe environment to share your experiences, share your learning, and challenge each other. And dare I say, Roz, I'm sure there have been occasions, many occasions, where we've all taken different things from the same book and shared what we've learned from it, and actually through that discussion have learned so much more. It's just enriching the book so much more, hasn't it?
It certainly has, Steve, and that's why I say I think because there are so many that have a different perspective of it, because each person takes from it something different, and obviously interprets the book the way that they've read it is different to somebody else. So there is that learning from your co-members of the book club. But it's, as I said, and I can't reiterate enough, it is a safe environment. It's a fun environment. So nobody is chastised if they haven't finished the book, if they didn't enjoy it. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion and are encouraged to share their thoughts.
Brilliant. Well, I've put your details up on the screen, Roz. If you're listening to us today, or maybe you're listening to us on delay, first of all, do reach out to either Roz or myself. Connect with us on LinkedIn, on Facebook. We're both there. Ask any questions about book club, find out what the latest book is. If you'd like to join book club, if you'd like to just come along for one session and find out what it's like, there isn't a commitment, there isn't a contract as far as I'm aware of. Is there? It's £7.50 per week, and that includes a book to your house. Please do get in contact with Roz. I'm sure, as I say, Roz loves to natter and loves to get to know our clients and gets to love to know you, and will tell you without sugarcoating it what book club is all about, and then see if it's right for you. And I'm sure we'll invite you along to the next session. So please do reach out to Roz, connect with us on LinkedIn. If you're listening to this video later on in this afternoon or in the week, then please do ask any questions, and we'd love to hear from you. I know Roz would love to hear from you. Roz, I'm just going to leave you with this one book. I've just picked this up last week, No Such Thing as Normal by Bryony Gordon. As you know, I'm a mental health first aid practitioner. Absolutely love this book. It looks like, well, I haven't read it yet, but love the look of the book. It's all about what mental health has taught me about mental wellness. So learning from other people's experience about mental health and how we can apply that and look after ourselves day to day in our jobs and in our lives. So I think that'd be a great one as well. And that's the thing I loved about book club, was there can be books on any topic that we can apply in our business, both about us as individuals and about the organization.
Exactly, Steve. And perhaps that might be a good prompt for me to remind you to pop it onto our Facebook page as a recommendation.
Absolutely. I will do that once we finish this Lunch and Learn. So that brings us to the end of our Lunch and Learn this Monday. It's been great having Roz Smith talk to us from Action Coach all about our book club. Roz's details, rozsmith@actioncoach.com. And it'd be remiss of me not to put this slide back up just as we finish. For £7.50 a week, you can come along and join the book club and get the book included with that price delivered to your door. And as we have talked about this Lunch and Learn, we have gone through so many different books. I haven't even mentioned the other one of my favorites was Revolution Purpose. The Purpose Revolution, even. I get my words mixed up. The Purpose Revolution, talking all about happy priorities and their desires and what they want to get out of work and life have changed over the last decade or so. And particularly with the millennial generation, what they're looking for in a job is very different to perhaps what you and I were looking for when we started our careers. And that ties in with things like Simon Sinek's Why. There's a theme going in the books that I've enjoyed, isn't there? As I'm sure there is for you as well, Roz. But it's been great having you as listeners join us this Lunch and Learn. We'll be back on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Please do join us again on Wednesday. But for now, please do reach out to Roz, reach out to myself. We'd love to invite you along to our next Lunch and Learn or our next book club as well. But for now, stay well, stay safe. Don't dwell too much on what's happened yesterday. It's a new day, a new week, and I wish you well. And let's go and make the most of it. Thank you, Roz. Stay well, stay safe, everybody, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care now. Bye-bye.